bring home it's early signing day across college football. Who will bring home the recruiting crown? And what games should you watch for week 2 of Bowl Extravaganza? All that and more tonight on Football Guys College Football Show.
All right, we are back, ready to go. Welcome to the college football show here at Football Guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the NIL. If you're following signing day, we're going to be diving into all of that. We're going to start with signing day, though, so it's pretty exciting. Our top 10 composite, 247 composite right now. Alabama is absolutely crushing it. So the fall of the Nick Saban era it was a little premature. Then we got Georgia, Texas, Miami, Ohio State. Those guys in the top 5. LSU, Oregon, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Tennessee round out the rest of the 10 there. I feel like Miami's that clown meme where they're just hanging out in here, even though, they can't win. They just keep getting recruits. What stands out to you, Christian, about this class?
There are a few things. I think, you hit on Miami, and I guess we can take it there really quickly. I saw a comparison to them being the Texas A&M from last year, right, where they get a nice recruiting class and maybe they dish out a little bit of money. There have been some insinuations from some other programs and coaches that Miami had a little bit of money to dish out. And I think that when you look at what Texas A&M was able to do with those recruits and how many of those guys left, when we look at what Miami's production on the field was this year in the first year under Cristobal, I don't know what that's going to look like. But I will say this is where they had to go. They needed to build the foundation, right? They didn't really have a whole lot of talent when Cristobal got there. And that is exactly why they kind of moved to go get him, to pry him away from Oregon. So I was pretty impressed with how they started. And I don't even, I don't think they were heading into today. They were in the top 10, I think, but I don't think they were top 5 heading into today. So I think that was interesting. There are a variety of other conversations that we can get into. Jeff, are you panicking on Ohio State?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't know. When you look at it, some of the recruiting battles that came down to today, the defensive end, Uiagalelei, that went to go to Oregon, Damon Wilson, the tight end or the defensive end that went to Georgia. I mean, those are two guys that you were hoping that you would get at Ohio State, because Ohio State had that pipeline and they were turning out, go back to Chase Young, the Bosa brothers. JT Tuimoloau is going to be another one, I think, that we're used to churning out defensive ends, but they didn't really have them in the pipeline outside of Tuimoloau, and Jack Sawyer has been a little bit of a disappointment. So not getting those guys, but you're not going to win every recruiting battle, but it does kind of, what exactly is going on as kind of the question on that, because when you look at individually, composite wise, they're doing very well by recruit. They're right there with Georgia when the average star rating for who they're recruiting, and not that far behind from Alabama. It's just they don't have the volume in the class. And so that's the thing there, but it does kind of go into it. And Miami, if you don't have good players already, then you have extra NIL money that you can buy for recruits. If it's not allocated to guys that are actually going to play in the NFL, you can spread that money around different directions. But it does speak to, I don't know, there's supposed to be rules, and apparently last year Texas A&M broke the rules by spending on recruits. Really, when they put this NIL money in, the intention with it was to reward players who had become the face of college football. Tim Tebow is all over ESPN when he's at Florida, and he gets no money out of that. Or more recently, Trevor Lawrence is the face of Clemson, gets no money out of that. And so trying to take care of those guys was the ideal behind it. And so, of course, you're going to get, I don't know, it's you ease up the speed limit, you're going to get people that are going to go 100 miles per hour. And that's kind of what's happening right now. And you've got other schools that are supposedly paying more by the book, where, but it's a competitive sport, and people are going to do what they can to try to take advantage and get ahead.
I love listening to Ohio State fans try to make, I just love it. It's funny when I hear it. I think you guys are fine. You're not going to get every damn recruit, so suck it up. Some of us never get in the top 10, and we make the college football playoff 2 years in a row, and that's Michigan. But I do, to the point. So to the point about the NIL and the top 10, everything. Oregon, the Oregon crushed it today. I know the really quick about Miami point to Christian, I want to jump in at. Cristobal shored up his line. Like, he got 2 of the top offensive tackles in the class. And then he just went after edge rushers. And you could tell what he's trying to do. Edge and line. He kind of has the talent there. We still don't know what that quarterback's going to be in Miami. I think that's the biggest question mark. Like, what's that going to look moving forward? But he did do that. And then you flip it over to Ohio State. Ohio State still got good dudes. Brandon Ennis is a dude. Like, he's going to bring culture there. He's an alpha when you're looking at that. I love Noah Rogers. I think he's there. Carnell Tate. They're going to get wide receivers. They have some of the best wide receivers again. I think we do have to have that question mark about last year's class, though. They missed on that class, that wide receiver class, like Keon Grays and all those guys. Like, we just haven't seen them pop off there yet. And so, you're looking there. But I do, to your point, I think Jeff said it today on Twitter when I saw it, I chuckled because, like, he got these recruits, but you're not. Everybody says Ohio State's soft, but will they stay soft with wide receivers like this? And I do think Brandon Ennis changes that a little bit because Brandon, he's an alpha guy, and I think that maybe they bring him in there and he has that role there. But yeah, I think the NIL has leveled the playing field a little bit, like in terms of where talent's going, and I think it's a good thing. I think we just got to get used to it. Like, I think it's just one of those things. Oregon as well. Uyangalele, like, he is there. Mateo there from St. John Bosco came there. They flipped Dalen Austin. They got Navasad, the quarterback, Austin from Texas. They flipped him from Baylor after losing Dante Moore to UCLA. That was huge for them. They went crazy today. They flipped into the top 5, and you're just looking at what they were able to do. Jurion Dickey's a name that everybody needs to know about. I know not a lot of guys know about him. He's the number 2 or 3 wide receiver on 247 Sports. He's legitimate. Like, these guys are legit building. Him and Nick's going to be there. Like, I thought the biggest winners today was Oregon. Like, if I had to pick a team here, they crushed it. They flipped guys from Notre Dame. They flipped guys from Baylor. That Phil Knight money, Nike money is huge for them.
Well, and it really, the way that realignment is repositioning college football, Oregon's positioning themselves, and they have to be a pillar of whatever the new, if they're not joining the Big Ten or the SEC, Oregon and the SEC seems crazy. But if they're not joining one of those 2 conferences, they have to be the pillar of this new conference that you would have to imagine the Pac-12 and the Big 12 would get together at some point with mutual shared interest, not wanting to get left behind. Oregon has to be that pillar. Now, if they're able to build that program and they're able to do that and have that Phil Knight money, they could really ascend, because I think that when Chip Kelly was there, it seemed like they were headed in that direction towards ascending into a blue blood program in college football. They took that step back when Chip Kelly left, and they kind of wandered in the wilderness there for a little bit. But if they can lay this groundwork here, once USC and UCLA is out of that conference and they consistently start winning that conference, and if that conference grows in size and importance and they become that tentpole, that pillar where they're kind of standing alone there, that's going to be an interesting position as long as Dan Lanning stays there, one, and if he can continue to recruit like this.
Yeah. Quickly, we mentioned NIL, and I know we kind of wanted to get into an NIL discussion, but I think where there's kind of been a lack of conversation about how the transfer portal has affected recruitment as well, because I think, you mentioned Michigan, Kevin. Michigan's going out and hitting guys in the transfer portal that can play right away, and I think that you can look at how they've been successful in that the last 2 years, and you can say, well, that's a viable strategy to winning now. And maybe we don't have to, spend NIL money on these recruits that we have no idea if they're going to pan out. Maybe we can go get a guy that we see traits. We've seen him in college. We know what he can be. And so we're going to attack that aspect of it, or go in that direction. And I think that at some point there will be, all of these schools will have dedicated guys focused on both of those things. But right now it seems like a lot of them are focused on one or the other. And I think that at some point that will kind of level out. But right now, you see, Oregon, I think the reason I feel they did so well today is because they killed it in recruiting, and they also got some guys in the transfer portal over the last couple of weeks. So I just think Oregon has done a really good job overall. Kind of shocked Texas is still up there too, just as a parting note here. I think Arch going there definitely boosted that because he is regarded so highly, but I don't know.
Well, to Michigan real quick, and I'll let Kevin step in there. You look at Michigan, where they were the 2020 year going into 2021 before they made that playoff push. Recruiting's kind of a lagging indicator, whereas the transfer portal can be a leading indicator. A transfer portal, you're grabbing guys right away. You're riding that success of back-to-back college football playoffs. Whereas the recruiting, you're kind of looking at guys that they were already committed in the cycle, or they were deep in talks with schools by the time Michigan had that breakout season, made it to the college football playoff. And so it will be curious to see if Michigan can put it a little bit more recruiting wise into the 2023 class, like the 2024 class moving next year.
Yeah, to your point, I don't think Michigan's ever going to be a top 10 team. I think they can be. It's the way they recruit. They don't necessarily go after those 5-star guys or the 4-star guys, like, but they have a kind of a certain kind of like, they have a certain profile of guys they like. But yeah, I mean, and I think to Christian's point, they are looking at the portal. Look, they have, like, when you look at the portal, they have 7 dudes that are going to play next year. 7 guys that they brought in. 3 offensive linemen. You're looking at tight end AJ Barner. You're looking at, Ernest Hosman, linebacker from Nebraska. Like, these dudes are going to go there and go. And I think, yeah, and I think to your point, NIL money's not going to be anymore for, like, they're not going to go and like grab like Nico for $8 million or whatever the number, or whatever. We'll talk about numbers, whatever the numbers are. And instead, why don't I use $8 million and go grab 4 dudes off the transfer portal that are going to help me win and go maybe to the playoff when there's 12 teams in it in a couple of years, right? Like, so I think that's the question. I think that's where coaches are going to go now. I think that's 100%. And to your point with Texas, man, that Manning bump. We have some questions about Manning on the show in general. Like, is he even on our top 5? I know he's close to my number 5. Is he slipping out of your 5, Christian?
Man, that last performance, he left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know about everyone else's, but I mean, he was, I think, my 5 going into the last couple of months of the season. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. And the reason why they are getting bumped up, they got Cedric Baxter, who's running back 1, Anthony Hill, linebacker 1. Like, when you're looking at the Jonte Cook, the 2nd, really good wide receiver, like, they're there. But again, some of these guys, like, they recruit well. Miami, Texas A&M, these guys, and they're not performing on the field. And the number one reason why is because they don't have a quarterback. And so you better have a quarterback. That's going to be the key. NIL discussion. What did Dabo say today again? I just had it and I lost it. Dabo says he built his through the NIL too, but what was it? It was the name, image, likeness of God.
It's through God's name, image, and likeness.
Yes. Yeah. So what the hell are you thinking about Dabo? What do we think about Dabo, Jeff?
God's apparently not a top 10 program. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I think that's, his pushback to NIL and the new age of college football is going to be the death of that program. Yes. I think we've talked about that quite a bit over the last couple of years. And I think, at some point you thought, oh, maybe he'll get with the program, like, I feel like some of these coaches kind of did, right? Saban kind of did. Saban did a good job of getting with the program pretty quickly. And I don't think he's ever going to get with the program and understand that this is just what it is now. And if you aren't, trying to get ahead, you're falling behind. And, we've had external discussions about Clemson should not be the favorite in the ACC next year. And I actually could argue that they might not be the number 2 team in the ACC next year. So I think that this is going to start showing up on the field as well.
It's really going to have to show up in a big way on the field, though, because once we go to 12-team playoffs, Clemson, even this year, this was not a Clemson standard football team. And it was not in the scope of college football. You never felt like this was one of the top 5 programs, whatever it was, but they never slipped out of the top 12. And they've got enough brand equity with Dabo there and the Tiger Paw and whatever else it might be. And they're going to build a good enough record as long as they stay out of the SEC that they're going to be making that 12-team playoff more often than not, even if they're not recruiting at that top line. And it's really going to, but the reality of it is too, you look at this Clemson program. Yeah, they had guys, they had NFL guys going back, but they struggled. When Taj Boyd was the quarterback, like you knew they were always going to wait for an upset. Then they lucked into having a run of Deshaun Watson followed by Trevor Lawrence, and then they rode that up a level. And those are 2, we see it now, 2 great NFL quarterbacks, assuming Watson gets back there, but we've seen that level of play already. It's all going to be on the quarterback on Clemson, and it's always kind of been that way. And that's kind of, if Klubnik's that guy that's going to keep them and push them up to that level or not.
They have enough talent. But to your point, like, transfer portal, they have 1 kid, Paul Tyson from Arizona State. Not good. Like, not good, Paul Tyson. And they have 1 5-star. They have one 5-star defensive lineman. Yeah, they always get defensive linemen, but yeah, Florida State's the favorite next year in the ACC. And in North Carolina, you could argue with some of the moves that they made, it could be team 2. So yeah, I think Clemson be out of there. And Dabo he's something like he is just something. And I don't want to make the same comparison because it's college basketball, but you know who also did this in terms of like one and dones? Coach K. Coach K did not want to do the one and done thing. He wanted a bunch of John Shires running around, and then he's like, you know what? I need to go win another national championship, and he did it, and they won another national championship, and that's how they built it. Dabo's got to figure this out, or Dabo's going to go. He's going to be obscure. No one's going to remember. They're going to remember. Oh yeah, you beat Alabama that one time, and then oh yeah, you beat them in there. Yeah, you won your national championships, and then that was it because you couldn't get to the program. So that's part of it. Anything else on NIL? Like I'm not the old guy yells at clouds. I think this is just a generation. I do think the money is a little bit, the numbers getting thrown out a little bit, I think are misrepresented a little bit. Like you're telling me right now, if Drake May, if someone offered me $5 million, you're telling me Drake May is like, no, I'm a North Carolina man. I'm staying here. That is crap. Like I'm going for $5 million.
You don't know what he's getting. I mean, is 3 enough to stay if North Carolina is your school? I mean, 2, whatever it might be. You don't know what that offer is to stay.
You think there's really $5 million getting thrown around at some of these guys?
I think somebody would give Drake May $5 million. I think Alabama would give Drake May $5 million to walk in and be their quarterback next year, like without hesitation. And I think there are probably other programs desperate enough that looking at him and seeing that this guy could be the number 1 pick. We see what Caleb Williams did at USC, elevating that program immediately. And that's I could see that happening. Yes. But don't go after guys that are at other people's school. Like if this is a legacy North Carolina kid, like, and I understand like if things, I don't know. It's just, if there are direct communications happening like that, there needs to be some violations in place. If there are rules, if there's no rules, then hey, let's all go and let's do whatever you want to do. If there's rules, there needs to be some level of enforcement, and there's not with the NCAA right now. There's no level of enforcement, so there's nothing stopping really. And what is the NCAA going to retroactively say? Can't go to a bowl game, and schools going to say we don't care anymore what you have to say? I don't know.
To that point too, I think that all of these coaches claiming that this is happening also are failing to name the schools. They're insinuating who the schools are. I think the biggest insinuation is Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, right? If you can't name a school, or you can't be a little more clear about which schools are coming to your guys, I don't know. If that were me, if I were the coach of that team, I would say Alabama did this. This is what is happening. But we saw that a little bit with A&M and Saban last year, and the pushback was all on Saban for getting on Jimbo. So maybe that's why people are hesitant, because if people are pushing back against Nick Saban, they're definitely going to push back against Mac Brown or whoever it may be. So I don't know. It's definitely a different era, and we're going to come across a lot of weird scenarios. And I think that I think Drake May probably did flirt with leaving. I think Mac Brown had a quote that, we're going to get you a quarterback coach, and we're going to get you ready for the NFL. And maybe that plus whatever money they were able to give him was enough. But I don't know. If I were Drake May, I probably would have gotten out of there anyway without $5 million. So I don't know. And I'm a North Carolina fan.
Well, at some point, kids need to do what's best for themselves. But the coach of UTSA pushing back against Alabama is a good way to ensure that you're going to stay the coach of UTSA. So, I mean,
yeah.
Sure, but I'm like Christian though. If someone's taking my guys, I'm calling you out because that's just who I am. I'm like, okay, all right, so this is what you do. I would schedule a press conference. It's probably the only press I'd get at UTSA anyway, and I would just be letting it fly and just saying how we develop. But again, to your point, like seriously, if I was at North Carolina and Duke offered me $5 million, I would be gone. Like I wouldn't even care, because the $5 million now, it depends on where this is at. But when you think of the money that's getting tossed around, I don't know, man. I was born in the wrong gene pool, because I'm here doing a podcast with these guys. All right, let's delve over. So let's talk about some notable recruits. We can kind of just breeze through this real quick. Dante Moore, I think, is the big one. We've talked about a little bit. He was a QB3, and I think isn't he here QB2, Christian? When we think of the rankings,
yeah.
And he was going to Oregon, and then he flipped last minute. UCLA, this is great for UCLA. They've been killing it in the portal as well. They're grabbing guys left and right, recruiting wise. It's probably one of the most hotly contested quarterback battles. Justin Martin's going to be there. They got the kid from Kent State, with Garbers is there still too. Like, it's going to be highly contested, but UCLA is building something. And I think it's probably because the Big Ten, right, Jeff?
Well, I mean, Moore is a Detroit kid. He's a Michigan kid. I mean, that's a guy that, that's in Michigan's backyard. And that's, I think a lot of, like, when you're in Ohio State or in Michigan and you're excited that UCLA and USC is coming in, you're thinking, well, this opens pathways to California. It's a two-way street. This opens pathways for USC and UCLA to recruit Michigan and Ohio, Pennsylvania, these other talent-rich states in the East that they never even bothered with before. And so, and that's kind of one of those things. He's probably not going to play this year. Maybe I don't know that he's going to. I think that they're still going to dip around the transfer portal and get somebody a little bit more experienced in there. But they're stepping into the Big Ten and they're going to bring a Michigan guy as their quarterback into the Big Ten. So it's interesting because he's going to be provided opportunities to play it around his family when normally he wouldn't get that.
Yeah. You have to imagine a selling point for UCLA to him was you can go beat your home state probably 2 opportunities a year. You can beat Michigan State and Michigan because I assume that they're going to be on that schedule. I know Michigan's in the East, but I don't know I don't know if divisions are going to be a thing at that point. I don't think they will be. I think they're just going to play the closer ones and not have to go out to Rutgers and Maryland and things like that. So I think that was a good selling point. And I love this kid. Intangibly, he is the best quarterback in the class. And so I do think if he gets thrown out there, I mean, we look at what DTR was able to do. I think Dante Moore could do that. He's not as mobile. He's definitely more of a passer than a runner. But I think that we could see some production out of him if he wins that job next fall.
I'm going to have a hot take. I think this is the best quarterback Kelly will ever have, like he's ever had. And he's had good quarterbacks, Mariota, all those guys. Like, I think Dante Moore is the best quarterback he's ever recruited, in my opinion, just based on everything that we see ready to go. Like, and so that could elevate him. And then it sucks because we'll maybe get to see it next year. Caleb Williams versus Dante Moore, UCLA, USC. But I think it's going to be Malachi Nelson versus Dante Moore in the next year. Like, it's going to be fun. LA football, Cali. We're here. We're back. We're back here out here. All right, Jeff. Percentage that Arch Manning starts next year for Texas at some point. What do you think?
I'll say 20%. The way that Quinn Ewers struggled towards the end of that season, I think I'm not ruling it out at some point because Sarkisian, it could get hot enough that if they're not undefeated, if they're not rolling through the season, if Quinn Ewers is not looking like an NFL quarterback, I mean, Sark, I don't think is going to mess around. So I'll go 20%. I feel like it probably could inch higher, but at the same time, you're also talking about a true freshman coming in and playing. And I know that coaches really are hesitant to do that.
Yeah, I don't think Arch is really any good. At least not as good as his pedigree suggests, but I also don't know if Ewers is any good. So I think like 10 to 20 is probably correct. I think there's definitely a chance if Ewers is still as volatile as he was this last year. I do expect Ewers to take a step, though. I mean, one of his strengths as a high school player was his deep ball and his ability to push the ball, and he could not do that this year. So I think that injury may have lingered a little bit too, and we didn't know about it. So I'm hoping that they go in as a battle, but I think Arch sitting a year would be beneficial for him too.
Yeah, I think he should, but I think Sark's got a lot of pressure, like you guys pointed out. Like, he's got to win, and like if that comes down to it, could be there. 2 last guys: Ruben Owens, running back 1. He was going to Louisville, and then the coach left for Cincinnati. He's at Texas A&M. I actually think that this is a good one. I think when you're looking at Ruben, I think he could step right in. And you're looking at that depth chart, it's wide open. Amari Daniels is there. Le'Veon Moss is there. But I think he can come in and make some noise here. What do we think of this move, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a massive hole that Devin Achane is leaving. And I think that A&M definitely needs some type of stability at the running back position if they're going to be good, because I think that while they may have a quarterback, I think that that's still very much so up in the air heading into next year. So I think we've seen true freshmen produce pretty early at the running back position because if you're a good athlete and you're out athleting a lot of the other guys across from you, I think that you can be successful. And I think that Owens is that type of guy.
Yeah. Jeff, you got anything on Owens?
Full disclosure, I'm not the freshman guy here on this show. I like to wait to give him a little bit of seasoning and step in. And I don't know, recruiting is throwing a dartboard, but you guys do your homework and you guys know your stuff. So if you guys are into those types of things, Kevin and Christian are going to be your outlet.
I just had to ask. I was just want to see where you're at. I want to see where you're at in your recruiting process. It's Christmas. I thought maybe you were out there just grinding the tape.
We're in
right?
rookie season, man.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
my
we
bad.
are.
Well,
I like the other end.
well, we like the. Okay, this got weird. All right, Brandon Ennis going to Ohio State. We already kind of mentioned him. Really, really strong kid. I think he can come in there really, really separate, do a lot of things to that offense. And as a Michigan fan, I hate that he went to Ohio State. That just tells you everything you need to know in terms of that. All right, let's go to this. Let's go spotlight games. So let's talk about some games upcoming. Bowl season. What out of 10, Jeff? What do you feel like? 1 being like this season has sucked so far, and 10 being like it's been the best thing I've seen. What do you think?
1. I don't know. I can't get into any of these games yet. I don't know. We don't do much G5 on this program, and so when you start into the early bowl season, I watched Louisville play Cincinnati, and that game wasn't overly exciting on Saturday. But I live for the Power 5 games, and so the G5 doesn't really do a lot for me yet. So my bowl season is really kind of, there are some games this week that are gonna kick it up a little bit, and I'm gonna be a little bit more excited about.
Christian?
Yeah. Like a 2. The opt-outs have been killing me. I think that there are some players that I would have really enjoyed watching, and I would have flipped on some of these games. But I'll be completely honest with you, I caught replays because I just wasn't super intrigued by any of the matchups after, Dwayne McBride even opted out. Like that was the one player that I thought, oh, bowl season, let's watch this guy who's maybe a draft prospect, definitely a draft prospect, and he doesn't play. And I didn't even know he wasn't playing because I think he opted out like the day before. So
the night before, yes.
Yeah,
But
it's a bummer.
Speaking on that though, I do think that we need to change maybe our mindset when it comes to bowls. And I don't know. I think we need to look at it as a preview of next year instead of, and I think that growing up and I don't know, the way it always used to be was that was a reward for a good season, a way to send off your guys as something extra. I think we need to shift our mindset now and view that as that's a preview of what next year's team is going to look at and watch for what players step up, what players are going to be given more opportunity. The complicating factor, if you have that, is then the transfer portal, because you might watch a running back go off for UAB and then he steps in the portal the next day, and you don't quite know for sure what's going on there. But I do think that maybe that helps a little bit. Look at it instead of a reward, and instead of sending guys off and maybe getting a draft preview, use it as a preview for the team next year.
It is weird though when I see Trent Dilfer on the sideline in the Boca Raton Bowl, hanging out with the cheerleaders, right? And then the coach he's replacing is coaching. It's just a weird, the whole thing just is grimy to me. And then you have the Louisville, Cincinnati, where their coaches are just hey, I used to coach this team, and they're interviewing them. Yeah, it's weird. But all right, let's go. I think there's some games though this time where we're gonna actually have some fun here. So let's go over this. Oregon versus North Carolina Tar Heels. So we're looking at this game. Right now, North Carolina comes in at 14.5-point dog in this one. They've had some opt-outs, though. They've had some stuff. Oregon, it looks like everybody's playing. I think from what I understand, Bo Nix will be there. I think Drake May's playing, Troy Franklin, these guys. Obviously, they've had some opt-outs at the running back position. But this should be some fun. Christian, what do you think of this game?
First, back to Jeff's point about this, taking this as a preview for next year. That is awesome if I care about the teams. And so here, I think that that's awesome. We can kind of see what North Carolina is going to be against a really tough Oregon team. However, without Josh Downs, I don't know how competitive this team's going to be. And once again, the transfer portal, they went and they got a couple receivers, I believe, at least one receiver from the MAC. I can't recall his name off the top of my head, but he won't be eligible to play in this game. So we won't see a full preview, but in this game, I'm looking for Bo Nix. I mean, I think Bo Nix should be on a Heisman list at least for next year. I think that he put together a good enough season that we can start talking about that as a serious possibility in a Max Duggan type of way. But I'm excited to see what Oregon trots out there. And North Carolina's defense is terrible. And so we're going to see probably the best version of all those Oregon offensive weapons. And that's bowl season. That's fun to watch.
Yeah, and it really comes down to Oregon positioning themselves for 2023. And if they go out there and they crush North Carolina, and this really, I mean, North Carolina is positioning Drake May for 2023, but at the same time, Oregon, should they be a top 5 team next year with everything that they've got coming back? And I think that this is a performance that could put them right into that conversation and cement themselves with Bo Nix, and depending on how they come off this bowl, as a team that to put there. And does the Pac-12 have 2 top 5 teams next year with Caleb Williams back at USC to begin the season? 3? I don't know.
Washington's there too.
Is Cam Rising done? Is Utah going to be there too?
Cam Rising is done finally.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So
yeah. No, but it's
out
watching to see how Oregon can position themselves next year, and watch this game. This game's going to be great. Game's going to be entertaining. I think North Carolina, I think we're all on the same page that they're going to be outmatched here, but May is good enough that he can make this at least entertaining. This isn't going to be one that you see outmatched. The quarterback can't do it, and this could be a great opportunity for May to springboard his 2023 campaign towards trying to be that number 1 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, no, I think it is gonna be. I think it's gonna be a fun game. There's gonna be a ton of points in this game. Like I can't see like defense over under on this game is 73. So if you like points and you're gonna have a little fun in this after Christmas, hanging out with the fam, and you're kind of like, hey, where is it going? I do, and this is good for May too. I think May needs to have a good game. He's coming back. He said, I'm a Tar Heel and all this stuff. Like, come out and win this game. Go have some fun. Like, I think that's kind of how he should look with that case. But no, you're right about Knicks. Question: would you rather have Knicks next year for 1 year, Christian, go for it, or Dante Moore for 3?
I think Knicks for 1 year helps you get the next Dante Moore, so I would take Knicks for 1 year.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's what they gave up, right? That's what they said. They said, you know what, I'm gonna go and do it. And I think it's fair. I think it's just an interesting question. All right, let's jump to the next game. Let's look at what we're going through now. Wisconsin versus Oklahoma State, and when you're looking at the game overall, 3.5-point favorites for Wisconsin. I don't know who's playing quarterback in this game for Wisconsin. It's like their third string, I think it is. I think Braylon Allen's going to play, though. So when you're looking at Braylon Allen, we're going to be there. Miles Burkhead, I think, is who's going to be in there. So Miles Burkhead's going to be there, a 3-star kid. On the flip side, Oklahoma State doesn't have a quarterback. Probably Garrett Rangel. They had a true freshman there since Spencer Sanders left. Ollie Gordon's going to be back there, so maybe that's going to be him in the running back position. They did pick up a transfer portal kid when you're looking at the running back position going forward. So that's an interesting one to watch. Sean Tyler, the Western Michigan guy, the Bronco. What do we think about this game, Jeff?
It'll be, I don't know how much coaching Luke Fickell is going to do, but it's going to be him trying to instill, his blueprint, what he wants his team to be. Braylon Allen, I think, will surely be the focal point. But I could see this game being a very low score. This is going to be the opposite of Oregon and North Carolina. I have a feeling. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think both of these defenses are going to come to play in this one. Oklahoma State struggled towards the end of last season. And so, but at the same time, Wisconsin was not what you would come to picture out of Wisconsin. So this is one of those that if you followed college football over the last handful of years and you kind of unplugged a little bit this year and you plug into this one thinking, oh, Wisconsin and Oklahoma State, you're not going to see what you've come to expect out of these programs, but because of both being in this position, it might still give you a pretty entertaining game.
Yeah. I think Fickell is going to just be in evaluation mode, and I think that's kind of fun to watch because I think they're going to cycle through some players because this is his kind of one opportunity before they get to the spring game. And by the time the spring game rolls around, he's already gotten his new toys, essentially a ton of new players that are going to be there by the spring. So I find that intriguing. I do find the running back matchup intriguing. This isn't a game I'm, pausing my plans for, though, for what it's worth. I just, I think I'll maybe catch the replay here. Yeah, I won't.
It's not because like Nick Evers is going to be a quarterback, former Oklahoma kid. He transferred to Wisconsin. Like when we're thinking of like what are these teams going to be look next year? These are not what the teams are going to look like next year. Probably for the most part. I mean, Ollie Gordon's a guy that everybody should watch out there, see what he's going to do. And I think some guys that on Oklahoma State's receiving core that need to step up. They had a really rough freshman year. Like when you're looking at guys out there, I think that could be it. But yeah, this game, Jeff, what do you think the over under is if you had to guess? It is a lot different than 73. How low do you think it is?
45.
Christian, you got one?
52.
43.
Gosh.
43. Yes. This
Okay.
is this. So yeah, this is a nap game. So you're watching it, you fall asleep, little leftovers. All right, let's talk about the third one. Texas Tech versus Ole Miss. And I actually like this game. It's intriguing. I know we have some opt-outs that happen in this one. But Texas Tech comes in at 7-5, Ole Miss at 8-4. They're a 3.5-point favorite. Ole Miss is, and you're looking at this. The over/under on this game is 69.5. We're gonna get to watch Quinshon Judkins run again, who's probably the running back one of his class, and I think that's where the fun is. 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns. What can Jackson Dart do? I think when you're looking at this game, Texas Tech lost. Obviously Donovan Smith moved on, and these other guys. Ole Miss should be the favorites, and they should win this game just based on the talent coming back. Right, Jeff?
I don't know, because Texas Tech is they're a feisty underdog,
Yeah.
and they're a fun team, and so Ole Miss you would think, but Ole Miss, at they were a top 7 program and kind of at the end of October, and then they completely fell off the ledge, and so they struggled towards the finish line there. So I would think that they should win. You think SEC should win? Ole Miss should win this game, but Texas Tech is not going to lay down.
Yeah. Do we know it? You mentioned Judkins. Evans hasn't opted out officially yet, right?
No.
Because we don't have a declaration yet. So I think he's probably still debating. I think he probably opts out and declares for the draft if he's smart. But no, I mean, I think Judkins can be effective in this game, but I do think that this is a game that we are going to see a lot of offense. I think, I think despite, Donovan Smith didn't play down the stretch anyway. I mean, he played because of injury, but Tyler Shuck, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Some sites had him as the first overall pick, and so you get to see that talent on display. He's not that type of talent, but he is fun to watch, and I think that this quarterback matchup is actually outside of Knicks versus May. I think this is the best one of the immediate bowl games. So.
Yeah, I don't have a ton left in this one, but I will say this: I was reading our write up too on the bull guy that we did. The key is going to be Jackson Dart. Texas Tech's rushing defense is 39th in the nationally success rate against the run. So they're going to really target Judkins and make sure they're there. So this is actually, if you're like a Dart fan, if you're still holding Dart and fantasy and Debbie and those things, you need to hope that he has a good game moving forward. This is that game you're looking at Jackson being like, okay, what can you do? Can you go win us this game? And if he does, then it's a positive light moving forward, and especially if you have him on a roster, if you like Dart or you've seen that, that would be what I'd be looking at in terms of the value there. All right. Let's jump into this real quick before we get into the games. Let's talk about some declares and talk about guys coming forward. This is Jeff's wheelhouse. He just said it. He loves this end of it, whatever that means, right? So he loves this back end of it. So some notable declarations. Sean Tucker, running back from Syracuse, he declared. What do we think about this, Jeff?
I want to see him run the 40. I think that he's going to be a guy that he's got that track speed, and what he runs with that time, I think is going to go a long way towards his draft capital. And I think that there's some things on tape that leave you wanting a little bit more when it comes to natural instincts with him as a runner, but at the same time, he's that level of athlete that he can erase a lot of those mistakes. And so I think this is a guy that, you look at that wide zone, and, if he were to land in Miami, assuming he's as fast as we think he is, that could be an interesting matchup for him. But he's going to be a testing guy, I have a feeling.
Yeah, sometimes I worry about his vision if he's in an outside zone scheme. But I think he'll figure it out. I think he's got some developing to do. And I think Syracuse ran a lot of zone, and he was fairly effective. We did see a dip in production this year just from his previous year. And I think that kind of matters a little bit. I think, not to spoil future content that may or may not come from Football Guys, but I think he's kind of a blend of Miles Sanders and Travis Etienne. And I could say that that's a pretty good running back, and that's a starting running back in the NFL. So I think NFL teams are really going to be intrigued by his athleticism. So I think you're looking at a day 2 running back.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think he's getting mock day 2 when you're looking at him. And I think the strengths are there. When we talk about it, I will say this. I wrote about him recently at Football Guys, and I said, hey, he's proven. You see where he's at. I think he excels in open space. But I think the concern I have, he has really good straight line speed. We see that. I question that speed when he's when he's at the line of scrimmage, and when they don't get him in space, he struggled. That's what I was meaning. I got some mean comments from some trolls on Twitter, and they were like, "Oh, he's fast though," and I didn't say he wasn't fast. I said he has good straight line speed, and he does that. I think his acceleration when he's in at the line of scrimmage and in that, I think there's some question marks there. Like, and I think his vision is suspect. Like when you watch him, I think that is the biggest thing. I think if he runs a 40 and like Jeff says, he smashes it, yeah, he'll be a day two. He's fine. He'll be there. But I do think that there's questions. And remember, he's listed at 205, like 202, 205 in that area. Like he's not a 215, 220 kid either. So I think there's some question marks about him. There's going to be some people that talk him up because they like him a lot. And I like him too. But I think there's more question marks about Tucker than people want to admit.
So real quick, Sean Tucker or Devin Achane?
Well, Sean Tucker. Because Devin's freaking 185 pounds.
I don't know what to do with Devin at all.
No, neither do I.
And we'll have those conversations down the road. Right now, I lean Tucker.
Yeah. I don't know.
What?
He was a lead back in the SEC. I mean,
but the problem is he got injured this year too, and because of his size and everything there. But then you see mocks where he's getting literally round 2 capital, and you're like, well, if he gets round 2 capital, then I need to fix whatever my assumption is of this, because if he gets round 2 capital, you got to adjust. And then what happens if Tucker gets round 3 and later in landing spot or whatever? Devin's a hard one. I don't know. Like if anybody pretends like they know what they're talking about with Devin, they're full of crap, because the size thing is just, we've never seen this guy. We've never seen a guy with his size really be a fantasy asset. Like if you look at it, someone just did this recently. They looked at the top, 32 running backs right now in fantasy. None of them are under 200 pounds, or it's close. That's everything you need to know about that.
Tyreek Hill. I'll say that. I think if he switches to wide receiver, he can be a really, really explosive weapon for someone. But I don't know if he'll do that. So he's a running back, and he's a pretty good one for what it's worth. So,
no, he is.
Like,
but he's a good pass catcher too. Like when I highlight him, literally the only weakness I have with Devin, and all I put in the thing, was his size. Like that's it. Like as a runner, he is solid. Like he's been solid since his freshman year against North Carolina when they played in that bowl game. Like he popped off in that game. Like I like Devin, but I can't. I don't know if I can be the guy holding the flag saying 185 running back could be a round 1 fantasy asset.
Sure.
Yeah.
But thanks for getting me yelled at, Jeff. All right. Max Duggan. We want to talk about Max at all? We talking about Max?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I don't want to say anything bad about Max Duggan. I mean, he's the heart of a leader, and I think that he can be a backup quarterback in the NFL, and good for him.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. He's got tools, and he's a smart football player, and he took care of the football this year for the most part. So I think he also has intangibles that NFL teams are going to like in the mid rounds. I think he's probably a 4th or 5th round pick.
All right. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. Will Levis, Kentucky quarterback. We're going to be talking about this guy a lot. I'm going to tell you right now, we just did a big, with Jay Stein from Dynasty Nerds, I did a big profile on this kid today, analytically, and nothing analytically is good. Like nothing. There was not one check mark besides size. That was it. And I laughed because I said every time someone says he has tools, you should take a shot, because it's like the whole Jay Billis thing where he talks about wingspan. It's going to be like that with Will Levis and tools. You're just going to hear this magic word out there. It's going to be floated around. It's called tools, but they're not going to watch anything that he's done the last. Remember, he's an older prospect. He's 2 months older than Trevor Lawrence. So when we're thinking of Levis, you need to keep those things in mind. Jeff, are you on the Kentucky train with this quarterback?
I'm very skeptical about some of the things that I've heard surrounding him in the draft. I mean, there's random Twitter accounts that don't have real names that are saying that he's the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, according to some GMs. And really, it only matters if the Texans view him as the number 1 pick. But if they take him as the number 1 pick, they're the Texans. So
yeah. Here's the thing. Yeah, you're going to hear tools. You're also going to hear toughness and leadership. And my thing is, he doesn't see the field better than the 22-year-old kid that has 1 year of starting, that has better tools and way more mobility. And I don't know how you can wrap your head around drafting this kid who is a 5-year player in college and still never figured it out, instead of the incredible and very rare athlete in Anthony Richardson. So who was already declared as well and should be drafted before Will Levis. I'll throw that out there now. I'm not giving hard stance takes just yet, but that's one that I feel pretty comfortable with, I think, at this point.
Yeah, he's going to get overdrafted. And that's okay because I'm not going to be the one doing it. So let's move on to the next guy. Israel Abanikanda, damn it, is from Pittsburgh. Me and Christian, we've really liked this kid for a while. Like when we've talked about him over the preseason, we said, hey, this kid, watch him. Right now, he's projecting draft capital as the 5th round, but I have a feeling that's going to pop up a little bit just based on the mock drafts I've been seeing. This season, 1,400 yards and 20 touchdowns. He's looked very good. Some are saying he has the best speed or athleticism in this class, just based on what we've read and talked about. What do we think of him, Jeff?
It just speaks to the depth of the running back class, because I think that this is a guy that works in a rotation, and I think that he's a guy that you could be putting in your fantasy lineups. But so if you're a dynasty player and you're listening to this, and you should be listening to this if you're a dynasty player, if you're out of your playoffs and there's no trade deadline in your league, look at these players that have popped up a little bit of value recently. Guys like Chris Moore, or maybe like if somebody's quarterback desperate, Nick Foles, or Zach Moss, whatever it might be, and try to get 3rd round picks for these guys right now, for people that are looking for that last final piece in their lineup, because these running backs are going to get pushed down into the 2nd, late 3rd round. And you're going to be getting guys that are going to be in rotations and are going to be very valuable in fantasy. And that's going to be, we've already touched on it. We haven't gotten into it. We're not at that point yet, but the depth of the wide receiver class is not there this year, but you're going to be able getting running backs that can plug right in. And we see this year guys like Isaiah Pacheco, guys like Bam Knight with the Jets, these are guys that were undrafted or 7th round picks. That these are guys that are mattering in fantasy right now. And Abanikanda is that type of player that could.
I always feel Southern when I say Abanikanda, especially if you say it loudly, which is why I won't. He's a good player. But I'm going to struggle with this running back class because of the depth, like Jeff said, because I think that, you look at everything that we know about draft capital and running backs, and we have to kind of flip our brains a little bit. Just in the last couple of years, I mean, even, Joshua Kelly, 3 years ago, he was drafted, and he is now the number 1 injury replacement if Austin Eckler were to go down. And he did go down for a time period here. So I think we need to look at this a little more nuanced as we approach this draft season and with this free agent class. And but I think Abanikanda can play, and I think that he can be a main cog in a rotation if he goes to a team that implements a rotation, which every team should here in the next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and to just point, like that's actually a rare good point about the rookie thing. Just kidding, Jeff. I love you. I wrote about 14 running backs in my preview just to kind of give you guys an idea who's coming. But I actually put 21 on there as a watch list. Like there's so many running backs that you could literally just write about. Like there's so many guys, and there's gonna be dudes that go undrafted that we pick up and we talk about them as like Isaiah Pacheco next year and these guys, because there's just so many. And that's why like I am very hesitant to go like people are like touting Kareem Hunt, some of these other guys. Hey, I like Hunt, but Hunt's been bad this year. And you're talking about this class is coming through. It's going to wipe out all these guys' value, all of them. And so you need to be very careful with how you manipulate and move up your boards, because some of these running backs, they're going away and they're not coming back. So, but we'll get into this as the season goes. And as we know, all the declares, we're going to be talking about it more and more. But we're going to go over to the games. We're going to pick some games, go through it, pick some prop bets, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah. So sportsbook rundown. As of right now, Kevin and Jeff tied for the lead, but also as of right now, Western Kentucky is beating South Alabama. I am the only one on Western Kentucky, so I'm going to call it after one quarter. I'm going to call it that we all split the first chip here, and we tied at 5-6. Jeff is still in the lead on the season, and we're going to pick some more games here. The Armed Forces Bowl. I promise I won't say anything bad about anyone in the service this week. Baylor, 5.5-point favorites against Air Force. Kevin, where are you going with this game?
Yeah, this is a tougher one with Baylor and everything that's going to be there. I'm going to go Baylor, though. I'm going to stick with Baylor here.
Yeah. We go Air Force. Air Force is coming in running the option, and these Baylor kids are not going to want to get ready for the option. I think Air Force is going to give them a tough time.
You always crap on the option, but then you're always like, oh, it's going to work against a Big 12 team. Like, which one is it?
A bowl game. I mean, it's bowl game. It's different.
Okay. All right. Oh, my bad.
I think Air Force has an insane rushing attack that Baylor's not going to be able to figure out. So I'm taking Air Force in this game as well. Independence Bowl, Louisiana against Houston. Houston is 7-point favorites. Jeff, where are you going in this one?
I'm gonna go Houston. There's some Dana Holgerson's making some people mad right now with some of the things he's doing in the transfer portal. So I think there's some fire around Houston.
Yeah, I'm taking Houston in this one as well. Kevin, where are you going?
I'm taking Houston, and you guys should be watching Matthew Golden, receiver out of Houston. He's legitimate. He's a legit asset.
Is Nathaniel Dell playing in this game, by the way?
No.
Okay. The Gasparilla Bowl, Wake Forest 1.5-point favorites against Missouri. I am first, and I am taking Missouri. I think Missouri was a better team than their record even indicated. They almost beat Georgia this year, so I think they can beat Wake Forest in this game. Kevin, where are you going?
I'm going Wake Forest just because I think Hartman's playing. Like, even though Hartman's not going to be there next year, I think he's playing or whatever. So I'm going to take Hartman there. Brady Cook's not very good, so that's where I struggle with this one.
That's true.
I'm gonna go Missouri. Missouri is gonna be an early 2023 team to watch out for, though, because I think that when you look at their schedule that they've got lined up next year, they're a team that they could get to 6-1, 7-0, and we could be talking about them in October, like this year's Syracuse type thing.
I like that. Look at that. Preview in 2023 already. The Hawaii Bowl, Middle Tennessee State against San Diego State. San Diego State's 7-point favorites. Kevin, where are you going?
I'm gonna go. I guess I'll go Middle Tennessee State.
Jeff?
No confidence whatsoever.
I'll go Middle Tennessee State, play with those points a little bit. We've seen underdogs do pretty well so far this bowl season, so I'll go ahead with that.
Yeah, and I'll make it a clean sweep and take Middle Tennessee State as well. Quick Lane Bowl, New Mexico State versus Bowling Green. Bowling Green is 3-point favorites in this game. I have a lot of coworkers that went to Bowling Green. I'm just throwing that out there before I make my pick. Jeff, where are you going?
I grew up about 30 minutes away from Bowling Green, and I grew up hours away from New Mexico, so I'll go with Bowling Green.
I am gonna take Bowling Green as well. Shout out my coworkers. Kevin, where you go?
This is my lock of the bowl week this week. If there's no way Bowling Green loses this game. If you lose to New Mexico State, they've looked bad. Pavia there, the quarterback is not very good. They had to beat an FCS team, I think, to get to this point. Like, they had to schedule one, like, to get to a bowl. Like, no, Bowling Green should win this game.
Yeah. The Camellia Bowl, Georgia Southern, 3.5-point favorites against Buffalo. The Buffalo Bulls, not the Buffalo Bills. I'm taking Georgia Southern in this game. Yeah, Kevin's next.
I'm going to take Georgia Southern as well.
Make it a sweep, Georgia Southern.
I hate when we do that. The First Responder Bowl. I will also not say anything bad about this one. Go check out last week's episode, everyone, if you don't understand the reference. Memphis against Utah State. Memphis is 7-point favorites in this game. Kevin, where are you going?
This was a tough one, actually, when you're looking at the squad. You know, I'm going to go. I know Calvin Tyler's playing in this game, and so when you're looking at that, like, he's going to play in the Bull. Cobbs is there. I'm still going to go Hennigan and Tigers, though.
Okay. Jeff?
Memphis.
I'm going to take Utah State. Don't ask me why. I'll take the underdog here. Birmingham Bowl, Coastal Carolina against East Carolina. There's no line in this game. Grayson McCall is not playing in this game, which lowers its watchability for me. Jeff, where are you going?
East Carolina.
East Carolina for me as well. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Pirates on this one. Holton Allers, shout out to you. Been there for 5 years under center.
Yeah, he started all 5 years
Every single season he has started.
Zay Jones, alma mater.
Yeah, I don't like Zay Jones right now. We'll talk about that off the air though. Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Wisconsin 3-point favorites against Oklahoma State. We already talked about this one. I'll take Wisconsin. Fickle's got to get a win. He can't pull a Marcus Freeman. Kevin, where are you going?
Yeah, I'll take Wisconsin in this one.
Fickle's my dude, Wisconsin.
Didn't Notre Dame lose to Oklahoma State last year too? So it would really be a Marcus Freeman? Am I crazy in the bowl game last year?
I think Oklahoma State did beat Notre
Yeah,
Dame.
they came back and won. Notre Dame was up, but they lost.
They were up by like 20 something. The Military Bowl, once again, just sticking with that trend. UCF against Duke. Duke is 3-point favorites. Kevin, where are you going?
This game is so weird when I'm just looking at it. I'm gonna go UCF actually. I'm gonna go there just because offensively.
Okay,
Duke.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Duke too. Riley Leonard playing.
Wearing a Duke shirt and didn't even take Duke.
I'm a Duke basketball fan, not a football fan.
Yeah. The Liberty Bowl, Kansas against Arkansas. Arkansas is 3-point favorites. Jeff, where are you going in this one?
Kansas, one of the stories of college football this year, but Arkansas is going to beat them.
Yeah, I don't see how Arkansas loses. KJ Jefferson's back. We haven't talked about the returners. KJ Jefferson returned. So that's the news. Kevin, where are you going?
Yeah, Arkansas is fully here. Like, they have getting Sanders. They have everybody. They're going to come out ready to go. So I'm going to take Arkansas, SEC team.
I believe it's only a 3-point line.
That's weird.
I know.
Put your mortgage down, Arkansas.
Tell people that. Holiday Bowl, Oregon, 14-point favorites against North Carolina. I'm going to take North Carolina to cover in this game. I think Drake May leads them to a 10-point loss. Kevin, where are you going?
The line is so big, and for a bowl game, I think that's where I'm getting held up a little bit on this one. I'm gonna go Oregon. I still think they cover.
Fighting Drake Mays, but I'll go Oregon. I think Oregon's going to set the tone for a big 2023.
Okay. And the last one, the Texas Bowl, Texas Tech against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 3.5-point favorites. Kevin, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to go Ole Miss on this one. I think Jackson Dart, those guys being there, I think that matters. I think Judkins can have a big game, and I think they really want to set that tone at basically, especially losing the Egg Bowl. I think they want to come out ready to go next year as our year. Lane's been recruiting his butt off, so I'm going to give Ole Miss.
Jeff?
Ole Miss.
And sweep Ole Miss for me as well. We'll do it.
All right, let's go over to Prospect Poker. So we're going to play poker on the screen, and while we do that, we're going to give you guys some prop bets that we like. Jeff is 17, 14, and 1 on the season. I'm 16 and 17. Christian's 15, 16, and 1. So, Christian, why don't you give us your over for this week?
My over for this week, I'm sticking to the weekly trend of talking about Justin Fields. I'm taking his over line of 70.5 rushing yards. The Bears are pretty beat up on the offensive line, and I think Justin Fields is just going to have to run his butt off. I think this will largely come on scrambles this week.
All right, so we started out here with a 3 of spades, a 4 of hearts, and an 8 of hearts, and then we have a 7 of spades showing for Christian. My pick is going to be Tyler Algier, over 48.5 rushing yards. Algier is I was wrong. I didn't really like him in the rookie class. He's looked very, very good especially last week, 139 yards last week. The Falcons are really leaning on him late in the season, and, bigger body rookie that doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him. He's doing well against defenses. So I'll go over 48.5 rushing yards.
Okay. My guy is going to be, I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence, over 11.5 rushing yards on this one. I like sometimes the quarterback bets here for the rushing yards. I think the weather can be a little bit weird tomorrow, and I think maybe you have some design runs in there, and I think he can get that on a scramble. So I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence, over 11.5 rushing yards. All
right. So I had a 9 of diamonds, and Kevin has a 4 of diamonds. So Kevin's showing a pair of 4s right now.
Very nice. My under this week is Andy Dalton, under 152.5 passing yards. I know that sounds low, but the Browns have actually held opposing quarterbacks under that in 2 of the last 3 weeks. The only guy that got them was Joe Burrow. So I just don't see a world in which Andy Dalton is good this week.
A 2 of spades for Christian. My under is going to be Dalvin Cook, under 73.5 rushing yards. He's been held under that most of the weeks this season. He had a big week last week in that comeback against the Colts, but I'll go Dalvin Cook under 73.5. And I have a 7 of hearts. Nothing.
So I'm gonna go Zach Wilson for tomorrow's game. If you're listening to this and watching this on Wednesday, and I'm gonna say under 17 pass completions. I don't know if he's gonna be able to throw the ball enough. I don't think they're gonna let him. And if he does, it'll be close to this. But I'm gonna go under 17 pass completions on this one.
The king of diamonds. Not that it mattered. Kevin won this one. That means that we go to the last round. So if apparently we're calling the game in the very first quarter of Western Kentucky, then we've split 3, and now that means Christian and Kevin is up 1 on all of us. So we play blackjack. We hit trivia questions when we hit. Christian's going to lead us off with a 16. Kevin has a 15, and I have a 17. That means Kevin gets to go first, and we need a trivia question for Kevin. You got something there, Christian?
I do. Outside of the playoff teams, we're going back to Pro Football Focus grades. Outside of the playoff teams, who is the highest overall rated team per Pro Football Focus remaining on the bowl schedule? Kevin.
So okay, so that is still playing in the bowls. They haven't.
Yes, eliminate the 4 playoff teams though.
Okay,
it's
so
random.
Yeah, I like this. So the highest rated team still left in. PF, man, they are probably something weird. I'm gonna, knowing you, Clemson.
No, it's Minnesota. It's Minnesota.
Oh, I
which
lost.
is pretty gnarly.
Well, no, that's a 1. I mean, well, yeah,
that's true.
You got the
That's
question wrong.
Yeah. All right. Who has a question for me?
Who has more receptions between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Austin Eckler?
Wow, what a great question. Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler has 95 receptions. Amon-Ra St. Brown has 89 receptions. So Austin Eckler's got him by 6 receptions right now. Ooh,
Nice.
You got 21.
I did get a 21.
All right. Anybody got one for me?
I'm tapped out. Kevin, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have one. So I don't know if you're very familiar with big throws and big oofs. So it's basically it goes through all the big throws for college football, Jeff, and then all the big bad throws in terms of that. And it gives like a quadrant in there. Who do you think? So he's a declaree, has the worst percentage of bad oofs in college football this year?
Will Levis.
Will Levis. Good job. Yes, it is.
That was so quick.
Do you guys want to know who Will Levis is next to? Connor Bazelak, Adrian Martinez, Donovan Smith, DTR, Haynes King, and Gavin Wimsatt.
It's not good.
Not ideal.
It's not good. Kevin wins. Jeff wins. Who wins? We have a 2-way tie. At the
Who won
top.
last week?
I did. I won.
Kevin.
Kevin
So
wins.
you win.
Whoever won last week wins ties.
Look at that. So I appreciate you guys tuning in as always to this. I just want to, as the bull goes, and I think what Jeff talked about is starting getting ready for the rookie drafts and where they're at. So on YouTube, I just did a quarterback preview. We're doing all kinds of different stuff on here for your dynasty stuff here at Football Guys. And I think it's just, hey, start getting into it. We're going to really pound the rookie guide stuff and just talk about like, hey, where's it going at? Where's the rookies? Where should you be drafting these guys? And I think that's where you're going to get the value here at Football Guys. And follow us 3 because we're going to be diving into it. It's Jeff's forte. He loves this rookie stuff. And I think it's just value to know. We have 21 running backs that we're talking about that we can get. And where's those 3rd round picks going to be? And I think there's just value. And I think signing up for Football Guys, I believe that we're going to have the best dynasty content out there because I think that we've been following these guys for a long time and we can help you guys win your leagues based on Jordan McNamara, Chad Parsons, all of us here at the dynasty team of Football Guys. Follow us here. We appreciate you guys and we're excited to kind of bring you new content this offseason.
Very good job.
All right. We are back. Yeah, I'm a company shield for you today, Jeff. But next week, we'll be back talking about it December 28th, 9 Eastern, live. Until then, I'm Kevin Coleman.
I'm Jeff Bell.
And I'm Christian Williams, and you just watched the Football Guys College